Hello, all you great DevOps people out there. How is everyone? I'm Jochen. Welcome to my live coding stream. I'm happy to be back on a nice, a bit cooler day. Still pretty great weather outside here in Bray. I have a freshly sanitized keyboard and trackball, so we're good to go. I hope everyone is okay out there. Hey Cobra, how you doing? Welcome to the stream. Happy to have you here. All right, so yeah, I'm pretty psyched to get coding again. Looks like I'll be able to return to my regularly scheduled program. And as always, I'll start by following up on my last session. But before I do that, let me just reiterate, if there's anything you'd like to know, if there is any question you have, if there is something that doesn't make sense, something that I'm talking that doesn't make sense, just let me know, and I'd be happy to get into a chat with you. So, this here, let me just switch that. I need a special keyboard for that stuff at one time. Here we go. Yeah, this is my agenda from last Thursday, and so I did some work on a Ruby on Rails application, namely the hosting dashboard we use for our users. And first of all, I had a bit of a tooling task, since the whole development environment runs in multiple Docker containers controlled by Docker Compose. I created a few rake tasks for the stuff that I'm using regularly, namely running database migrations, running tests and these things, just to save me from having to type Docker Compose exec app bundle exec rake test or something like that. So I replaced this by simply running rake docker :spec, and that's it. Okay, we have a first question. Why sanitize my keyboard? Well, first of all, I think it's a good idea to clean and maybe even disinfect your stuff. But especially if you had a game night where you had these things, and which is not the best of ideas. So my whole keyboard was a bit yucky and greasy, and so there I had to do something. It's not something I do regularly, so I might have some kind of OCD, but cleanliness isn't part of it. So let's get back to the topic. The main thing that I wanted to do last time was resume working with Action Policy. Action Policy is a pretty new authorization gem that you can use with Rails or even without Rails, so it's not specific for Rails. And it has quite a few advantages for me over the can gem that I have been using for years now. The main thing is that Action Policy describes the authorization policies in the form of actual Ruby code, not in the form of a nested hash like can does. First of all, having a hash nested 4 levels deep isn't easy to read, and then it violates the law of Demeter, and it's also not very flexible because I ran into problems where I wanted to have authorization based on a has many through association with three tables involved, a one table on one side, the other table on the other side, and a connecting table in the middle. And for the life of me, I couldn't do it with can. Even though they described how to do exactly this use case, it didn't work for me. It might be my own fault. It might be something I did. It might be a shortcoming of can. Uh, I really don't care if I'm not able to do this even after half an hour of reading documentation and trying things. I think I should be on the lookout for something else, and I found this something else in action policy. There has been an interesting talk by the author at a recent RubyConf. So I got curious and tried action policy. Turned out you need a Rails 5 for action policy, so I did an upgrade. Now we are running our dashboard on Ruby 5.0, which is nice too. And then the busy work started, where I had to replace all the places where I had done can authorization and replace that by action policy authorization. Hey Slayer Darth, how are you? Happy to have you back. Welcome. Feeling pretty tired this week? Yeah, let's start a club. As I just mentioned, I had crisps last night, which required me to clean my keyboard today. I also had I took part in a World of Warcraft raid both on Saturday night and on Sunday night, so I feel pretty shattered myself. It's not a good way to start the week. So yeah, healthy nutrition and enough sleep should be focus topics for me as well. And I now commit publicly to get to bed early today. All right, so yeah, action policy. Where I ran into problems last week was by a behavior that I didn't expect, and I wasn't able to resolve it before my planned end time of 5 o'clock. So I spent a bit more time uh, debugging this. Yes, I do have a beautiful family. I just wonder what triggered this. My daughter's hat? What are you talking about? Are you stalking me? I'm still not concerned because I live a bit of an online life. I'm certainly not being too cagey with these things, but now I'm genuinely curious where you found these pictures. I assume you're referring to, and maybe we can discuss my daughter's hat. Whose birthday it is actually today. Not the hat's, my daughter's. Um, oh, okay. Yeah, sure. Okay, getting off track in the first quarter hour. Okay. So, action policy, strange behavior. And I was able to find the reason. It's basically implicit behavior that is not yet documented. So if I go into action policy here, turns out that action policy in action policy defaults defines 3 authorizations, and it defines each with false, which means if you don't override these base class methods, you'll get a authorization failure if your controller tries to call one of these actions. So if it calls index or if it calls create, it will get an authorization failure. And since the new policy gets alias to the create policy, new will also fail. And that's what I ran into. So that solved the problem. I just had to override these methods in my own policies, and things started to work. And now it's just a matter of time. I already have my tests, which of course started failing in troves, down to only, I think, 2 handful now. And so it'll take me another hour or so to get the whole replacement done, and then we should be okay to deploy this new version that replaces can with action policy, and I can return to the original task that triggered me to switch, because action policy should be able to do what I wanted to do. You also found out that I used to work for one of your most loathed hosting providers. I will not comment on this any more than, yes, I used to work there. We are now down from 82 failures to 9 failures, and since most of these things have to do with authentication, so the user registration stuff and the user password change test here, they have to do with the session creation in the application, and I guess there is some authorization issue that shouldn't happen in the first place, because we don't need authorization for password changes. So I guess I'll just have to extend the session controller a bit, or create extend the session policy that I already created, and we'll be good to go. However, I'm not going to do that today, because it doesn't add a lot of value, or it's not too entertaining to do this on stream. Maybe I'll just show you a short glimpse on the results. So that's how things look when you are using action policy. Let's go into the clusters controller. I guess that's pretty simple. So what you generally do, yeah, I think it's when you're an experienced developer and you have to go through customer support because they've messed with the config on their end and insist you do. I didn't work in the hosting part of the IT department there, so I wasn't even directly affected or involved in these things, but I saw enough of these incidents and how frustrated people are if you have to talk to someone in customer support, and you'll find quickly that they are nothing more than glorified phone operators reading from scripts. And that's one of the things that I decided to do differently when I started my own hosting company back in 2010. So if you call our customer support, well, you can't call us anymore, but we'll be in a web chat with you. It'll be someone from our web operations team. So the actual engineers who run the place. And I guess that's why we have a lot of loyal customers, because most of our customers are web agencies, especially they are developers, and just talking on the same level and speaking the same language in terms of technology really makes things much, much easier for both sides, because the customer just doesn't get told, well, the servers are running fine, so it must be your problem. And we get things resolved quickly and with a long-term solution, not only with a workaround. And it's much more fun for us that way as well. And job satisfaction is something we value very, very highly. And especially on the technical level that we are working on. So we run a lot of big websites. That's what we specialize in, high traffic websites. It's not, most of the times it's not one side alone. So for example, if a database on our side responds slowly, most of the times it's not the hardware or the setup, but a very inefficient SQL call that, for example, dumps a whole table over the network just to throw all the results away but the first record or something like that. And that's something we can't solve on our side. We can't. We could have the fastest databases in the world, and it still wouldn't solve the problem. And that's where talking to your customer and telling them, well, our database is still pretty fast in returning 3 million rows to you, that gets things cleared up very, very quickly. Back to coding. Here I have my clusters controller, and so here let's take the show action. I simply get the cluster that wants to be displayed, and then I call authorize with this object, and if the authorization works, it'll simply return and continue the action, and if authorization fails, it'll throw an exception that we then handle. And let's take a look at the cluster policy. That's where I describe who is allowed to do what. So everyone is allowed to create new clusters. That's what we're here for. And only admins are able to delete clusters again. And since I've aliased the show, edit, and update actions to manage, here I can describe in code what these most important actions should do. And in this case I say, okay, if the user's company ID, which means the currently logged in user's company ID, equals the cluster's company ID, both user and record are provided by action policy. Or if the current user is an admin, then they'll be able to execute these actions. And I think that's pretty straightforward. And that's also something you can easily test. So let's just call up the test here. I can create a cluster object. I'll create a user object that owns the cluster, and I create a policy object, and then I can simply say expect policy new to be true and create to be true, and then I'm happy. Maybe I should even test manage, but that's covered in these tests down here. Same thing, create a cluster and a user and check the policy in different permutations. And that's it. It's pretty straightforward, and so far I like action policy quite a bit, even though it seems to be early days, because especially for the exception handling, it seems to be lacking a method that is documented, and that makes things a bit awkward at the moment. But I've simply created issue on their GitHub repository, and I hope to get a reaction soon. Okay, enough for follow-up, and let's take a look at the chat before I switch to today's topic. I don't understand why they don't have live chat yet. It's more secure than talking over the phone. Yeah, it makes things easier, especially if you have people like me for whom English isn't their native language. It's much easier to write in a live chat, and it's easier for the customer to provide us with information because they can simply cut and paste an error message or something like that. So far we've been very happy with our live chat, and we are even thinking about making it the only avenue for our chat, for our support, even maybe getting rid of our ticket system, but we'll see about that. How technical do your clients tend to be? Vary. We try and steer our customer base towards web agencies and especially their development teams, because that's where we think we can have the most success together, for the reasons I've mentioned before. And so we are operations specialists with a certain amount of experience in software development, obviously, and our customers are mostly web developers with maybe a bit of experience in running things as well, but they apparently are clever enough to not go into this space of running their own hosting, their own servers, or Amazon instances or whatever. So having a web agencies and their web development specialists work with us on the hosting side has been a recipe for success for both sides, and it's a lot of fun even after 8 years of running this. Hey QP, can you specify scopes in action policy? No, you can't. That's one of the things where I said that it's early days. However, there already is an issue where scope support is discussed, so I guess it'll only be a matter of days, few weeks, for this to be released. All right, so I've been talking for half an hour about action policy, and there are only 9 more issues to do. Shall we be spontaneous and just finish this, or move over to the thing that I had originally planned, which is, by the way, I still haven't published the recording of my last session. I'll make an effort and do this week, and as always I'll link it in this agenda issue, and I won't close it until I have done that. Let's switch to today's issue. What I intended to do was switch the repositories for our websites, so for my company website frysteel.it and for our product website frysteelbox.com. They are both built on Middleman, and we run continuous integration for them on CircleCI, and if you've been with me in a few of the earlier live streams, you saw me migrating stuff over from CircleCI to TravisCI, and I have to and want to do this for our websites as well. And so what I'll try to do is take our website repositories, create a Travis CI configuration for them, let them run their tests on Travis CI, and then deploy them if the tests are successful. In one case, deployment will go to Heroku. In the other case, it'll be just a deployment to Amazon S3. They are both static websites. If you know Middleman, you already know that it's a static website generator, similar to, for example, Jekyll or Hugo, because our websites don't have any dynamic stuff in them. The dynamic stuff is all in the dashboard application that is separate. And you might ask, why run tests for a static website? Well, I'll show you. So yeah, I'll switch over, and maybe I'll do the action policy stuff on Thursday if I don't get to it earlier. Let me close this tmux session, and let's see, in my projects directory I have the Frystibox website, not the Frysteel IT website. So let's start with the Frystibox website. Projects, that's more interesting anyway, I think. So open tmux again for this. Have you considered using forum software in case your clients want to ask questions on there? Actually, we have. Just discussed it with my business partner earlier today. We have been thinking about doing this, having kind of a community forum, have a place where we can discuss our roadmap, get input from customers where they struggle, things to improve. And since we are already running discourse for our internal team, so we have a split between Slack for synchronous communication. We are a completely distributed team, so we talk in Slack if we need to do it quickly, and everything else happens in discourse, where things are more loosely coupled in terms of response time. And so yeah, it's not a huge step to say let's use discourse for our customer communication as well. There might be a few complications through GDPR, and we'll have to think about them, because people will have their stuff public there. It's not a closed ticket system where you where only the customer and you can take a look. So we'll have to consider the implications there, but we are still pretty positive of launching something. I guess we have it's a bit of a solution looking for a problem though, and I might just take a look at Bytemark, how they do this and what they decided to do. It might be a good example to see how to do things. So thanks for the link. I'll definitely have a look at that. Okay, let me see. Yep, so this is our Middleman website that you'll see when you go to www.frysteelbox.com. And we actually have a Circle YAML file with our current CI setup. Let's just get this here. It doesn't do much. It does the usual Ruby stuff, bundle install before, then rake test for testing, and then we'll simply deploy it to Heroku in this case. It just uses rack as the web server, so it's very lean, and rack only delivers the static files, and the reason we use Heroku and not Amazon S3 as with the other website is that it's pretty complicated to do redirects on S3, and with rack I simply have a file that a Ruby file that defines, okay, if the URL matches this regular expression, then redirect there. So it's basically just the redirect functionality that made me use Heroku, where I can actually execute a web server. Tests. Why test a static website? So I don't know where I got the idea. I don't think it was a idea I had myself. I certainly found something else on the web that gave it to me. By using RSpec on a static website, you get things like this, where you can go through all your source files and write actual tests that they have a title, and make sure they have a meta description. So this is, as the file name tells you, kind of a SEO test. And each page is also expected to have a level 1 heading. And that's an interesting thing. So I can actually make sure that if someone adds a new page, that these basic things are are accounted for. And the same with bugs. So if you discover, we missed to add this and that to our website, you can actually use the same process as we do in software development. If you discover a bug, fix it and make a test for it. So at one place, at one time, I discovered we didn't have a robots.txt, and we didn't have a sitemap linked in it or something like that. So I added a few tests that make sure that we don't have a regression where we lose the sitemap in the robots.txt file. And what's in the last? Yeah, so it's a bit of another SEO thing, where I simply test our home page to have the most important keywords on it. So if someone changes all the copy on our start page, and then this test will make sure that managed hosting, Drupal hosting, and WordPress hosting still appear somewhere on this site. And yeah, while it's not too important to me, it's nice to have. So I'll definitely keep these tests, but I'll have to switch them to Travis CI, and that's what I'm going to do in the next 50 minutes. So Slayer, you showed the REST API you built last week. I'm actually not sure. You might have linked it in the chat and I simply forgot to check it out. If you want, just link it here again, and we can talk about it. In the meanwhile, I'll take a look at Travis. I guess I'll just use my dashboard configuration as a template. So dashboard.travis, YAML. Okay, I guess. I need something like this. Okay, let's see. Ruby, cache bundler. Don't think I'll need any services. I don't need to have a database. Bundle install will run automatically. The only thing I'll need is run break build to get the website built by Middleman. You built a REST API in Sinatra. Oh, I think you mentioned it while you were developing it, but I don't think I've seen the final result. With a collection of JSON files, you need routes for each status code, and that enables you to easily add new status codes as well, I guess. Cool stuff. Yeah, I like these lightweight things as well. It's I'm still a fan of Rails, but something like Middleman, for example, or Sinatra, that allows you to do things with much less heavy machinery. I always like these approaches. So, of course, we'll have to deploy this not to our dashboard API, but to this application. That should mostly cover it, I guess. So what I should do is first get SSH out of the way and then create a branch. Or am I even going to use a branch? Yeah, I'm going. Let's start with the branch, and let's adhere to the process and create an issue first. So this will be an enhancement, but there is no enhancement tag. You probably should have one. Or testing. Testing yellow. Oh, I should have just... I was already saying, ah, crap. That's why they... Oh yeah, here we are. Good. Assign myself. Issue number 117. I always use the issue number as the prefix for my branches. Create traverse configuration. Okay, so let's go to repositories and add I thought I already had added this application, but obviously not. Here we go. Traverse CI. Okay, I have to actually add this one here. And here we go. Oh, I've added my whole repositories here, and that wasn't what I wanted to do. So let's see. Let's do another. That didn't do it, I think. So there was something with empty commits. Allow empty message. Allow empty. You can always drop this commit by rebasing. And here we go. I have the window open, and one of our neighbor houses is a building site at the moment. If my microphone picks up too much noise, please let me know. Since I have my headphones on, it doesn't annoy me too much, but I don't know how much of that actually reaches you out there. I've just discovered the follow log button. I don't have to scroll manually anymore. So here's the before action. It runs it twice though. Okay, so Travis by default runs rake with the default action, so just rake. I guess I don't need the before script then. It's nice, makes things easier. And all the tests ran successfully. Skipping a deployment because this branch is not permitted. Yep, we only permit the master branch. And for me to be able to actually deploy to Heroku, I'll have to add the API key, and let's see how to do that. I already forgot. Travis Heroku key. And simply use this command. Okay. So, since I don't know if I have to expose usernames or passwords or something like that, I quickly switch to my secret screen. You should still be able to hear me. And let's see, Travis encrypt Heroku first have to install the Travis gem. Maybe I'll add this to the development part of the gem file then. Guess it makes sense to have that in there. Oops, made a mistake here. So here we go. Let's see. Okay, that was easy. Let's get you back. Hello. Everyone's still out there? Okay, gem file. Gem. And I like my gem lists sorted. Hey Stoffi, how you doing? Welcome to the stream. Happy to have you with me. Alright, so that's that, and I guess we are good to switch to the master branch and merge that stuff. But first, let's add my changes. And I guess I'll do a rebase as well. So I'll reword this one. Rebase already caught on to the fact that this commit doesn't even have anything, so it'll be left out anyway. Add Travis CI support for switching from Circle CI. By the way, I don't have anything against Circle CI. They have been running a solid service so far. But we needed to use Travis because we wanted to test our chef cookbooks, and that's easier on Travis CI than on Circle CI. At least it has been at the time when we made the decision. Okay. This looks like the perfect day to bash your head over Kubernetes and Cert Manager. Why does it? Is it a rainy day outside where you live? Are the streets flooded, or are you living in a war zone? So far I haven't done anything with Kubernetes. We decided to get started with Docker orchestration with a bit of a smaller solution named Container, built by the eponymous Finnish company, and so far we've been pretty happy with it. One of the next things will be that I'll switch from deploying to Heroku to our own container platform, so the website runs on our own infrastructure. But one step after another. That's this. Let's do a forced push to have a clean branch, which should in turn, we can close this, we can close this, which should trigger another CI run, follow log. That's so convenient. So, Stoffi, what are you using Kubernetes for? What kind of workload do you run on your platform? Hmm. I forgot to run bundle install. So let's do another rebase to have a clean history. See, it's always good to have a branch to work in. You would like to serve some static websites over HTTPS. Yeah, that's exactly what I meant when I said I'm going to deploy this to our own container platform. So far, the website is running on Heroku, and we are using their free SSL service. I guess it's probably Let's Encrypt, but I'm not sure. Previously, we had been paying for an SSL certificate for this website, and then they started offering their free SSL. So we quickly switched to that. And with Container, I'll be able to automate Let's Encrypt for the website, which will be pretty convenient and cheap. Heroku is definitely easy mode, yeah. That's exactly the reason why I chose it at that time, because I simply didn't want to deal with doing things. It might be totally strange that the CTO of a hosting company chooses Heroku to run their website on, but it's for purely pragmatic reasons. And we are not specialized in running Ruby applications anyway. We specialize in Drupal and WordPress, so it's all PHP based. So yeah, but now that we have a container platform where we can run any workload we like, that's one of the things that will come on this stream pretty soon, I guess. Who doesn't love Ruby? Ruby is so awesome. I love this language from the bottom of my heart. And that comes from someone who has actually written a book on Perl. So it ran all the tests and it still skipped the deployment. Okay. And this change detected is probably from the caching stuff. That's perfectly okay, so I guess it's time to merge that. Oops. Yep, we're good to merge. Oh, maybe I should first... I didn't even pull. That's interesting. Ooh, okay. Gem install git smart. I should probably switch my Ruby version to 2.4.2 here as well, but that'll be another issue, small issue. I won't do that on stream. That's just housekeeping. So let's do a smart pull. Here we go, and let's go back to my branch here. Do another rebase just to be sure. There we go. Now, let's merge. There we go, that's that. Git push. Here we go. And I should be able to delete. My development branch. Meanwhile, Travis has already picked up on my master change, and now we should see a deployment as well. Hey QuickDraw, welcome to the stream. What a great day today to have you all here. Sorry to bother you, but I was wondering if you have any experience with Elixir. No, I don't, actually, and I say that with a bit of regret, because even though I am expressly in love with Ruby, I would love to do something in a functional language, just for out of curiosity. So Elixir seems to be one of the best options here, and I have 2 or 3 weeks off in next month, and maybe that's a good opportunity to do something like that, even though I'm pretty glad that my wife isn't listening or watching the stream, because she'll certainly kill me if I even suggest I'll be taking work stuff into our vacation. But yeah, that's something I'd really like to see, how these functional languages work and what it'll do to your brain. So no, sorry, I can't tell you anything about Elixir, but I pretty much would like to. So, what's happening here? Not much. Hey Lumi, how you doing? Welcome to the stream. What am I doing? Yeah, that's a good question. I get asked that a lot. What I'm doing is I have a we have a website that is built with Middleman, and I had the strange idea to use RSpec to run tests on our static website files to make sure we do SEO right and things like that. And I'm in the process of moving CI, these tests, from Circle CI to Travis CI. And the next step will be actually what I have been talking about earlier, doing well, completely lost the plot here. What was I going to do? Oh yeah, switching deployment from Heroku to our own Docker platform. Yeah, it's linting, and I have a few tests. Let me show it to you here. Something like this, or even this. Oh no, let's see. The index spec was the most readable, I guess. Simply start a web server, so it'll start Capybara, and then make sure that our start page has the most important SEO keywords on it. Things like that. So at the moment I'm switching from Circle CI to Travis CI, which is pretty trivial, I hope. And the next step, and I'll do that probably on Thursday, will be to not have Heroku as the target, but our own Docker platform, which we'll run with container. We don't use Kubernetes at the moment because I thought it would be a bit too much for us. So so far we've been using container, and we've been pretty happy with it so far. So let's take a look at Travis. Oh, right, just at the right time. Tests have run. And now it should be able to deploy to Heroku, and it should update the website there. Yeah, first of all, it's not easy and wrapping your head around. Even if, say, I would make the effort and get a Kubernetes cluster set up, then I'd have to transfer all the learnings to our web operations team, and that'll make things just too complicated because we have our daily business to run as well. So when I saw that there is Container, which is at container.io, it's written with a K, which is written in Ruby again, our main language here, I was hooked immediately, and so far it worked pretty well for us. So, I think that's actually the log from Heroku, from the Heroku build, right? Yep. Deploying stuff, building, and then it runs Middleman again. Done. Okay. Achievement unlocked. Pretty good. Okay, so we can actually do what I should have done in my commit message, which is reference the issue and so we'll do it the manual way. And the only thing I'll have to do now is to switch off Circle CI for this thing, otherwise we'll have two deployments at the same time. Best option for Kubernetes nowadays is to get a commercial managed Kubernetes cluster, yeah, something like OpenShift or something, and so there are only two repositories left, and we can tell this one to stop building. And since this is a backup one, okay, that's probably, yeah, okay, whatever. So, go back to our agenda for today and check off build CI and CD for a Middleman website. Okay. I'll do the same thing for our other company website, which gets deployed to Amazon S3. However, I don't think I'll be doing that on stream because that'll just be too boring. Instead, I guess I'll think about doing the container deployment from Travis on Thursday. There might be a few things I'd have to prepare for that, not too sure, so I'll actually have to do a bit of planning here. But at least for today I'm done and ahead of time. So I'll still have a quarter of an hour. So let me switch to my big picture. Sorry. One day I'll be able to use OBS correctly. here we go. So, is there anything you'd like to chat about, or is there anything you'd like to ask me? Did it make sense what I did? Is there anything you'd like to share? Let's do happy hour. And have some tea. Yes, Lumi, just to get back to your statement, yeah, it really makes sense to have someone to run these things for you. And even though container is much simpler and easier to run than Kubernetes, we still pay container for managing our core services, so the whole container platform. We only provide the nodes, the machines things run on, and we run them ourselves, we monitor them and stuff, but having the core container infrastructure running with etcd and all that stuff was something I wanted to outsource first, so that we just don't have to deal with it. We still have to learn how to use the platform correctly, how to deploy our workloads and stuff like that. And when we have that down, then we can start thinking about running our own container infrastructure all on our own. But until then, I'll be happy to pay Container Inc. A bit each month, so they make sure the core stuff keeps running. Git, yeah, hit me. If you want to make a commit for a submodule, all you need to do is make and push the commit from the parent repository, right? So yeah, submodules basically are nested Git repositories, and you could have almost the same thing by simply creating a so initializing a Git repository within a Git repository, and so the parent repository will pick up that there is a nested Git repository. However, if you're not using submodules, it will simply ignore this repository, and it won't do anything about it. What submodules do, however, is that the parent repository actually recognizes the submodule repository, and it simply stores a reference to the submodule's head revision, and that way it'll keep track of the development in the submodules. So to come back to your question, if you make a commit in the child repository or in the submodule, you still have, I think, to commit and push from the parent repository so that the new submodule head reference gets committed and pushed in the parent repository. I haven't used submodules in quite a while, so I'm not sure if just making changes in a subdirectory in the submodule and then doing a commit and push from the parent repository will actually make a commit and push in the submodules. I don't think it'll do that. So you might still have to do a commit and push on two levels, first in a submodule and then in the parent repository. But that's easy to try, I guess. Okay, so I guessed right. That's good to know. Okay, and come back to what you said, Lumi. Yeah, it's not about outsourcing it completely. Of course, there are different levels of support you can get. You can also run things yourself and have someone on basically on retainer to help you with support and stuff. That's also possible with Contina. They offer premium support where you pay them to basically be on standby and take care of things, or help you with questions and issues you might have. So what we are using is still pretty basic. We use what they call Container Platform, Container Cloud actually. Which simply is that they run the Container master server for you and take care of the stuff that needs to be in your on your nodes, but you have to supply the nodes yourself. You can also choose Container Cloud Compute, where Container Inc. will also run the machines for you. But we simply pay them there $95, so that the most basic stuff is taken care of, and we run everything else. Our entire CI/CD Git hosting apps DB on Kubernetes and bare metal servers I'm coming from. Yeah, sounds like a very reasonable thing to do. We also run most of our infrastructure on bare metal because it gives us complete control of all the resources. Yeah, it is pretty likely that we'll switch to Kubernetes at one point in the future. Especially since Container now even have their own Kubernetes distribution. So I'm not sure what their strategy is actually, because it basically will cannibalize their own platform. Container is something they've developed themselves, and I guess it might be even their long-term strategy to leave Container for Kubernetes. I'm not really sure about that. I'll have to talk to them at one point, and we'll see. Hey Eric, welcome. So many new people today. I'm really happy to see all of you. I am new to coding. I've started a bit with Python, but I've seen that C# has a really easy concept of adding buttons and so on. Is it possible to add buttons as well as in Python, or will I always have my program in command text? Oh, that's a very broad question, to be honest. So I guess, what kind of application are you going to develop? Will it be a web application or a desktop application? So the reason I'm asking is most languages will allow you to do these things. It just depends on the kind of IDE support you need. As Lumi already is hinting at, if you have a good IDE for A, the language, and B, the use case you are aiming at, that's a definite advantage. And C# with Visual Studio has a great IDE. There are solutions based on different languages. There are things like Python Qt. There are Ruby-based frameworks as well. And of course, it depends on how much you are prepared to spend time on these things. If you need to have something that you can prototype quickly, where you don't have to code a lot, where you can generate a lot of stuff, that will be part of your decision as well. I just realized that I was browsing the container website without you being able to see it. I should get rid of this screen. Let me switch back to my browser view here. So that's what I was looking at earlier, container.io/cloud, and so they have their cloud, hosted platforms. Then their cloud compute, where you get the machines as well, and then there's the developer and business support that you can subscribe to. And above here they have Container Pharos, which is their own Kubernetes distribution. That I'll have a look at that at a later time, but so far let's just get a few things running. In particular, our product website. Oh, great! I'm happy to see that it made it more clear for you. So, yeah, I'm still curious. What would you like to do with development? For a lot of use cases, Kubernetes is just overkill. Yeah, that's the impression I got myself. It certainly seems to be a great product and great solutions to do things, but it really looks like heavy machinery. Stuffy writes, "Where's my beer?" I think all you need to do is enter, open a terminal window and enter brew install, I think. That's why I'm using a Mac anyway. You wonder what the other things are in the pipeline that I want to deploy? Well, actually, we for our own hosting platform that we've been running for a lot of years now, we are still using LXC, and so that's something I'm looking into as how to replace LXC with Docker, for example, just because of the much better tooling and support. We are also thinking about a new hosting product that will certainly build using Docker instead of the older LXC technology. And while we are mostly running PHP applications at the moment, we are already branching into other languages as well, because, for example, even PHP developers are now discovering JavaScript-based front-end frameworks like React and things like that. So requests for running Node.js, for example, are increasing, and making all these changes to our hosting infrastructure will be easier if we don't do them on the legacy infrastructure and use the advantages of Docker instead. So it'll certainly be PHP, Node. As you've seen, we have Ruby-based applications that we want to run ourselves. So it'll be quite diverse in terms of technology, and that's one of the main allures of Docker, that having all these things containerized, contained, will make many things easier. Also, for our own purposes, running things like Elasticsearch, spinning up an Elasticsearch stack with Kibana in front. All these things are so much easier using Docker, and yeah, that's definitely one of our priorities at the moment. We'll even be running Java. I was just about to say what we'll never run is Java. Well, we'll never run our own Java applications, that's for sure, but with things like Elasticsearch, Solar, and other Java-based things that we need in the hosting context, since our customers need them. So we'll definitely be running Java in Docker as well. So Eric, right now I am making random programs like a countdown tool that we open URL when the time is up. Interesting. So I was thinking about adding 2 boxes for text, one for time, one for URL. When the user presses the button, it should start the timer. Yeah, so you're into running desktop applications. To be honest, I don't have much experience in that, at least not from recent years. Not even sure what I would suggest here. It doesn't seem to be a popular cross-platform application framework at the moment, is there? Of course, I'm very Apple-centric with my hardware here, so doing something in Swift would be probably something if you are targeting this part of the market. But if you are aiming at Windows users or Linux, not sure about that. Having a real beer with lemon, so it's probably a Weizenbier, right? Which is a good thing at these summer temperatures. Not that I would complain much. Here in Ireland, we only have about 20 degrees, which is nice and cozy, not too hot. Hey Pimplacek, welcome to the stream. Why people are saying that Docker is good only for development and not for release? For production? Well, I certainly don't say that. We are already running a lot of applications for our own internal stuff in production on Docker, and it'll only grow. And we are going to switch to Docker for our whole hosting infrastructure eventually. We are still working on that. But yeah, don't let people tell you that Docker is only for development, because that's certainly not true. Running web apps in JVM. That's interesting. Rust for low-level components and Go for infrastructure stuff. Yeah, Go is also an awesome language. I just read a bit about it. I don't have any practice experience with it, but yeah. At the moment, we are solving our own scripting and automation stuff completely with Ruby, but should I have to choose another language, I'd certainly choose Go for that. And yeah, Eric, that's pretty reasonable. Just to take your stuff one step at a time and cover all the basics first. Yes, thank you for the following, Pimplercheck. I really appreciate it. It really helps the channel if you follow it, and of course it'll also help you get notified when I'll be online next time, which will, if the universe allows, be on Thursday, same time, 3:30 p.m. Irish Standard Time, so GMT +1, I think. Thanks a lot for the great chat today. I had a lot of fun. I also finished my task here and reached my goal for today. So all in all, I'm a pretty happy camper. I'd love to see everyone on Thursday. I'll also post another issue with my agenda on my repository here. So thank you all for joining me here, and if you haven't, don't forget to follow the channel, and until next time, cheers.